the standard for cardiovascular condition. When you move across from exemplary to recognized, you see a drop of about 10%. When you move from recognized to acceptable, you see a drop of about 15%. When you move from exemplary down to unacceptable, you see a drop of 40% who cannot make or cannot achieve the standard for fitness cardiovascularly. So again, the father of Monroe said that. Center of Disease Control. I love these studies because everybody says, oh, we've got to focus more on academics. Any of you in the school system, we're talking about STEM here in Alexandria, Virginia, drives you crazy. We can't even repair our country crisis because we don't have any skilled laborers. Everybody's not going to be involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. Not going to happen. Imagine this. I spent 40 years in education, and I wasn't a very good math student. But I inspired kids to do other things. Anyway, students who are physically active tend to have better grades. You've heard that. We're going to keep talking about that. Better attendance, better cognitive performance. Their classroom behaviors is better. Higher physical activity and physical fitness levels are associated with improved cognitive performance, concentration, memory. Now, this is coming from our government. I know we don't want to get into that right now. More participation in physical education class has been associated with better grades, standardized test scores, classroom behavior, and on-task behavior. Why in the world don't your kids have daily PE? In Illinois, the school where I came from, high school, 3,000 students, we had daily PE. All 4 years, not 1 year, all 4 years. The only semester they didn't have physical education at our high school is one semester in their sophomore year they took health. That was it. Otherwise, they were in physical education classes. Okay, increased time spent in physical education does not negatively affect the student's academic performance. So our government has studied this. Time spent in recess has shown to positively affect students' cognitive performance, attention, concentration, classroom behaviors, and not misbehaving. Okay? So our government knows this, but nobody has the wherewithal to have a policy. Brief classroom activity breaks, 5 or 10 minutes, associated with improved cognitive performance, attention. You've just come from Mike's where he talked about active classrooms. The kinesthetic classroom, that's all important stuff. Participation in extracurricular physical activities such as interscholastic sports has been associated with higher grade point averages, lower dropout rates, and disciplinary problems. I coached for 40 years. I told you 75 coaching seasons. You know what we always said as coaches? Oh, our kids do better academically in the season than they do when they're not in season. And we said, oh, it's because they don't have any time to goof off. They go to practice after school, they come home, they have to eat, they have to do their homework, then they go to bed. They were also more fit when they were in season. We never put the connection together until we got into the neuroscience. It's the combination. Yeah, their time is more structured, but they were more fit when they were in season as opposed to when they were out of season. Hello, it's there. And Dr. Reedy talked about the Swedish study. I love it. 1.2 million men we're talking about. Of the 1.2 million men, 27,000 siblings, 3,100 fraternal twins, 1,432 identical twins. And what they found was higher IQ scores were found in those men with better cardiovascular condition, as we talked about, even when comparing twins. So now we've taken out gender, we've taken out environment, we've taken out genetics, we've taken out everything out of the equation. Cardiovascular condition, the higher it was, better the twin did. And if the conditioning between twins was significant enough, so was the IQ scores. Why are we missing this? I don't know. So here, I love this. I come to places like this and they say, oh, you're the PE teacher. You're just pushing for more PE. Darn right I am, because it's important. It should be a core subject in every school. I don't know what the high school day is. At our school, we had an 8-period day, okay? Our kids took their 5 core subjects. Then they had 1 elective. They had a full hour of lunch because we wanted them to have some time away from us so they could socialize. That was important. And then they had PE. That's our 8-period day. don't tell me you can't do it here. And by the time our kids are seniors, a lot of them are early dismissal or late arrival because they've taken all of the electives they need because they've finished all their core subjects. So don't tell me it can't be done here. It can be done everywhere across the country. In the old days, and I'm old, we used to have daily PE. That's just the way it was. Okay, so I get this all the time from the skeptics in the audience. And by now, there shouldn't be a skeptic in the audience. You should all just, oh yeah. Not in agreement. Any scientific evidence? And the answer is yes. Dr. Rady talked about these gentlemen, but I'm going to emphasize them a little bit. Dr. Chuck Hillman, who was at the University of Illinois when he did his studies, okay? You've probably seen this slide. I have made Chuck Hillman famous. You see, he sent me these 2 head slides and explained what they were. I created this slide. It's all over the internet. You think he's giving me a penny for what I've done for it? No. He owes me at least a drink, don't you think? Anyway. What you're looking at here is 20 kids. This is 20 kids composited an MRI scan. They're sitting down and they're taking a test, but prior to taking the test, they sat quietly. Now, we're not talking about a cognitive test. We're talking about like a flanker test or a switch test. If you're familiar with something like lumosity, for those of you who are old enough to do it at home because you're bored, it's not a cognitive test. So they're sitting down and they're taking the test. Here they're sitting down and the same 20 kids are taking the same test, and they just preceded it with a 20-minute walk. Look at the brain of those kids because of the 20-minute walk. What did we do when we saw this in Naperville? We got our kids to walk before our statewide testing. Hey, get up! Move! 20 minutes. I got our band director said, hey, make a CD with 150 beats per minute, and our kids are going to walk around the school. We told our kids, we showed them this. You know, our juniors and our statewide testing take the SAT. I said, juniors, I met with them. I spent time. I met with them in an auditorium. I said, which brain do you want to take into this SAT test? This is going to determine where you're going to go to school. Which brain do you want? Don't walk around. Just sit on your big fat duffs. And this is not because of me. It's not because of phys ed. It's not because it's part of it. But our teachers do a wonderful job. But we average double digits at perfect SAT or ACT scores every year. Double digits. I mean, for us, a down year is 9 or 10 kids that are perfect scores. Now, come from great backgrounds. Their parents, they do some extra schooling. The whole 9 yards. Okay. He took this study and said, wow, I'm going to take this a step further. And again, Dr. Reddy referenced this. He took 9 and 10-year-olds and he divided them between higher fit and lower fit students. And again, it's an easy test. Again, not a cognitive test, okay? Well, where the brain here is red and white, it's lit up, it's resolving the issues of the test. Where it's blue, that part of the brain is not working. It's not solving any problem. On the right-hand side, the lower fit students, you see more cool, more blue, not as much activity going on. More importantly, look what happens when you move down to the hard test. This brain of these higher fit students is all lit up. All lit up. The lower fit students still can't recruit enough brain power to resolve the issues of the test. Hello, there it is in red and white. Now, let's take it one step further. So Dr. Hillman says, look, I'm going to bring kids in. I'm going to recruit 221 kids from the surrounding area around Champaign-Urbana where the University of Illinois sits. And he says, we're going to put 112 in the program. 109 are going to go on our wait list. They have to wait till next year to be involved in the program. So every day there was a school day, 185-day school day. Those kids came in for 1 hour of everyday extra activity. Now, they had the same benefit of the kids in recess and PE, whatever, as their peers, but they had 1 extra hour of very vigorous activity. He brought in physical education students. They measured their activity with heart rate monitors and pedometers to make sure that during that hour they were very active. Okay? So that's what he did. So then, after a 9-month intervention, he brought the kids in and they put them through the test. This is them taking the flanker test. Look at the brains of those kids involved in the intervention. Look at the kids who were on the wait list. The difference is 1 hour a day difference. Look at the kids taking the switch test. Again, the brain here is all lit up. Here, it's not. And these are 9 and 10-year-olds. Which side would you want your kid to be on? The waitlist side or the intervention side? And the intervention is, guess what? We have these kids in school. Get them in PE. And they say, the brain that's all beating out shuts itself off to new information. So he talked about this, neurogenesis. Wasn't until the mid-1990s we thought you could build new brain cells. Up until then, we thought you were born with X number of brain cells and then you killed them off by doing bad things. Guess what? Even at 72, I can still build brain cells every time I do aerobic exercise because of BDNF. Okay? So we didn't know that. All right. So here's a typical road in Chicago. Our politicians are behind a little bit. But anyway. So our brains is constantly pairing off brain cells. Brain cells that aren't being used, so it pairs them off. They die. They go into brain cell heaven or something. BDNF, which is a neurotrophin, a chemical that's in our brains naturally. All right, and we're talking about BDNF. It's the road workers. So after an exercise period, then our brains start to look like this. We're starting to replace those holes. We're starting to replace those dead cells. So it looks more like this rather than this. Wow, why not? Okay, so it goes on. We now know that exercise creates new brain cells. Now, in my school, our teachers do a great job. So when they go to PE and then they go to a new learning, you're taking those new brain cells that we've created in PE and you're adding more neural connections along the way. You're teaching them something. There's more connections there. They're learning things. Their brains are getting more robust, more healthy. That's important. That's how a school system should work. Okay? Now, I get into this neuroscience a little bit because I am a phys ed teacher by nature. And I've listened to Dr. Reddy talk a number of times, and I think you need to pare down and understand a little bit better of the neuroscience. Like I said, I finally had to get Dr. Reddy in my living room and say, hey, you got to sit down and explain this to me better so I can. The first time I read Spark, I went, what? Especially the second chapter. I thought it was like reading alphabet soup. BDNF, IGF-1, anyway. So I consider myself a translator. I try and take it. All right, so we have a brain cell. It has a neuron, it has off of it has dendrites and axons. Now, we have hundreds of billions of brain cells in our head that communicate with each other, but they don't touch. There's a gap between brain cells. That gap between the brain cells is what we call the brain synapses. Information must flow from one brain cell to the next through this brain synapses. Well, what controls that flow of information from one brain cell to the next are chemicals that are also in our brain called neurotransmitters. Now, this next slide for me explains to me the best why physical education and exercise is so important to the brain. Because these are the neurotransmitters. The first I talk about is dopamine. That's that reward, pleasure, motivation, and drive. That's that runner's high you get. At 72, I'm still waiting for my first runner's high. Anybody who's told you that exercise is fun has lied to you. Exercise is hard work. If it isn't hard work, it's not true exercise. You got to sweat. You got to breathe heavy. But once you do, you feel better afterwards. That's the dopamine kicking in. Okay? So serotonin helps us deal with obsessions, compulsions, and memory. Things that are important to us in our daily lives. Things that are important to our students in our daily life. Our spouses, everybody, our parents, everybody in our life. That's why exercise is so important. Norepinephrine helps us with alertness, concentration, and energy. Again, what could be more important than that? I mean, heck, as a teacher, that's what I want my kids coming in. Now, what's nice about these neurotransmitters is that they don't sit in isolation. They tend to mix and match. Okay? It's like putting a couple of them together in a blender. So when you take dopamine and put it together with serotonin, you deal with appetite, sex, and aggression. The best way to explain this to you is, after a really hard workout, you're not hungry. You're not. Your brain says, hey, you're satisfied right now. An hour or two after your workout, your brain says, oh, calorie burn, eat, okay, drink, so on and so forth. But that's your brain telling you that. The combination of serotonin and norepinephrine helps with anxiety, impulse, and irritability. Well, that's what he talked about in the other room. Depression, anxiety, all of those things. Those are the common in the pharmaceutical world. You see, For years, he was treating those conditions with pharmaceuticals, Dr. Rady was, and he found out that if you read the book Spark, he could treat those better with exercise without side effects. There's an next one. Combination of dopamine and norepinephrine helps us with attention. In the pharmaceutical world, that's Ritalin or Adderall. And we've got so many kids on those things, it's crazy. Crazy. So that's what goes on. Now, when you really put all three of these together in that same blender, you really come up with a smoothie. And you're affecting their mood and cognitive function. That's why exercise is so important in our daily lives. That's why it's so important in our children's daily lives. Okay? So neurotransmitters, this is like the traffic going into downtown Chicago. Okay? That's it. Now the transmitters have to go to work. So then the transmitters are the traffic control. And it starts to slow things down. It starts to direct traffic. It helps the flow of transmission of information from one brain cell to the next. That's how these things work. Okay? Those are there in your brain. You were born with them. You just have to put them to use. Okay? So here's what we know about exercise. It improves impulse control, behavior, attention, decreases restlessness, improves arousal, lessens fatigue, improves motivation, helps mood and anxiety regulation, combats depression, improves self-esteem, reverses learned helplessness. Those are those kids in our school who think that they can't do it. They can do it, they just haven't gotten there yet. Okay? So we have to build up their self-esteem, and their self-esteem doesn't come from, don't get me started on math and all those other things. It combats its toxic effects of stress hormones. Stress hormones come to our kids because what's happening in the community, but also because of poor nutrition and lack of sleep. So we can combat that because of the feelings that we get from exercise. Wow. If we could take the power of exercise and put it in a pill, you would be the most important and most the richest person in the entire world. But we can't do that. We can't do that. Okay. So there is no research or data anywhere in the world that shows that more classroom improves learning. So here's what happens in schools. Oh, we've got these kids who are struggling in math. So we're going to give them an intervention, and the intervention is going to be, if you can't get it in a 45-minute class, then we're going to put you in a double class. We're going to give you 2 back-to-back. Well, if she doesn't like math, why the hell do you think she wants to be in 2 45-minute math classes? That's like saying to this young lady, you know what? You need a root canal. And it's so good for you, you need 2 of them, and we're not going to give you any Novocaine. Like, hello, but we've got people who think more time. No, there's no research. You see the flag down at the bottom? That's from Finland. Finland has one of the highest literacy rates in the world. After every 45 minutes of class at the elementary level, their kids go outside for a 15-minute active break. Absolutely every day, regardless of the weather. Take the time to put on their snowsuits, hats, gloves, boots, and go outside. Take the time to take it all back off and get back in class. Now, I did a presentation in Long Island last year. Superintendent Herbie said he went to Finland to see it. And sure enough, he goes there and it's snowing and the kids are outside and they're running around and they're just having a good old time. And he was like, so guess what? In his school in Patchford, Medford, in Long Island, 2 recesses every day for his elementary kids. Okay? We've got to learn from the brightest and the best. We keep doing all these things the wrong way. So what's the return on investment for physical education? First of all, you got the kids in school. Second of all, you got phys ed teachers. You know what? Phys ed classes are normally bigger than a math class. So a phys ed teacher is really cheaper than a math teacher. Because I can deal with 40 kids, and the damn math teacher can only deal with 25. So you need more of them. I had 18 phys ed teachers in my class for 3,000 kids. The math department had 25. I did with 18 what he did with 25. Hello. It's cheaper. Physical activity is associated with improved academic. We've known that. Physical activity lowers chronic disease risk. We've got a healthcare crisis in the United States. We're crumbling under the cost of healthcare in the United States. We're starting to see kids at age 10 with type 2 diabetes. I've been in schools where I see a 10-year-old kid about this tall and 255 pounds, he's got type 2 diabetes. Not type 1, not childhood diabetes. Type 2 already. And that's, for a pharmaceutical company, that's like a slot machine. Oh, well, you need something for diabetes. Cha-ching. Oh, you need something because you're depressed. Cha-ching. Oh, you need something for heart disease. Cha-ching. I mean, that's what it is. And yet we keep falling into the same trap. Movement prepares the mind for running. We've gone through that. PE provides students with skills, knowledge, and confidence for a lifetime of healthy habits and fitness. That's only if it's done right. I'm from the old school. I started teaching in 1969. Most of you weren't even a twinkle in your parents' eye in those days. And we did all these stupid team sports. Do you know that beyond the age of 26, only 2% of the adult population participates in team sports? Then why do we spend so much time doing that in our PE class? It should be about fitness and wellness and health and mindfulness and health and nutrition and sleep. That's what it should be about. Yeah, we have to have those sports because kids have to have fun. They have to run around and they have to play. That's good. Play is good. But that shouldn't be our focus. And it still is today. Drives me crazy. The return on investment. No other subject can develop all of these skills. I dare you to tell me another subject in school that can take care of all of these things in what they're doing. Can't. An English class doesn't have anything to do with health. Doesn't have anything to do, responsibility, self-esteem, yeah, maybe. Knowledge, play, swimming, safety, that we can do that all if it's done right in physical education, but it's got to be done right. It can't be just about team sports. It can't be. Okay, we've got to change it. Here's Robin Cox for those that I talked about. Robin Cox out of New Zealand, she just got a preschool. And so she likens this baby's brain to look something like this when it comes home from the hospital. So, I dare you to try and pour math, science, reading, any other kind of curriculum in here and let it hold. It won't. You have to fill these holes in the brain because the brain hasn't been fully developed until you do it. So it's ridiculous to put all this STEM education here when it can't hold it to anything down here. Now you can't read this, right? So let's make it clear so you can read it. Now kids come to us to school for the most part with baby reflexes and posterior reflexes. Vestibular, vision, hearing, smell, touch, taste, proprioceptive, kinesthetic, they can touch. But here's where a good phys ed program comes into play. Fine motor skills, gross motor skills, spatial awareness, body awareness, directionality, eye-hand-foot coordination, midline, moving across the midline, laterality, integration of right and left hemisphere, and dominance. Those things have to be in place before you can put anything else. Before you can go to visual memory and auditory sequential memory, you can't get to those higher levels of thinking until you fill in the base. And again, so I tell this story. If you get kids in kindergarten or first grade and you ask them to do a pencil roll, and a pencil roll is they're supposed to roll like this, okay? You'll get kids in kindergarten and first grade and they'll roll like this. And it's because they haven't learned how to track with their eyes. So they turn their head to see where they're going. Well, if they haven't learned how to track with their eyes, how the heck can you teach them reading? Seriously. But we do that because we don't test it. I can go to a second grade class, anytime, any school, anywhere in America, and get the kids skip. If they can't master the opposite hand, opposite foot motion, they will be your poor readers. I guarantee it. You need to do it, you need to fill in the holes before you can teach them. Neuroscientists believe that students will learn 10% more when they're standing as opposed to sitting. You see, the only smart one in this room is me, because I'm standing. You're pinching off blood flow and oxygen flow at your knees and your hips as you're sitting there. I just wanted to mention that. Students increase their learning if they add movement to that. So here's what happens in America. Hey, it's time to read. Everybody grab your books, sit here in front of Mr. Zientarski, and we're going to read out loud, right? You've seen it. Oh, and let's put rugs down because it's comfortable. No. Let's do this. Grab your books, come here, and read the first two, or page 21 and 22, while you're walking around your room. When I ring the bell, come back to me and we're going to discuss what you read. That's learning. That's learning. Not sitting here reading words out loud. You've got to be able to know what the heck you're reading. And you're going to do that because you're going to increase your learning by about 13 to 14% if you add movement to the reading process. Again, learn from the brightest and the best. All right, so you want to know why you're here. You want to know what Mr. Zientarski has done with all this research. I'm glad you asked. We collected data. We had what we call the data retreat. We looked at kids coming in. We said, what can we say about those kids who are poor performers in school? The most common denominator is they were poor readers. So we got together and we created a class that we called literacy. And that was going to be their elective. Their incoming freshman was going to take literacy. Every day in literacy, they were going to go in and they were going to read 20 minutes of sustained silent reading. You want to be a good reader, you got to practice at it. You want to be a good gymnast, you got to practice at it. Okay, but you got to read at your Lexile level. A ninth grader isn't going to improve their reading scores if they're only reading comic books. Okay, you got to read at your Lexile level. So they did that. They gave them test taking. Now they thought that was successful, but this would never happen in Virginia. But it happened in Naperville. We had parents complain. So, well, we're glad you see the benefit, but our kids as freshmen didn't get to take an elective. I told you about our 8-period day, and by the time they're seniors, they have more than enough, but freshman parents don't understand that. So my principal comes to me and says, would you consider running a 0 LRPE? Now, if you read Spark, then that's the class that Dr. Rady wrote about. And I said, yeah, because I had spent, Dr. Rady had come to visit us. I started to get to understand neuroscience. I said, yes, I will have a 0 LRPE, but here's my caveat. I want the first period of the day then to be the literacy class. I said, okay, we'll schedule it that way. So the people, the reading teachers involved, I said, we got to collect data. So we collected data using a nationwide reading test. And when we collected data, here's what we found. From 2005 to 2010, we collected data at the end of first semester. That's why they chose that. It was the reading teachers. Don't get me started on English teachers. Anyway. Kids who didn't have benefit of a PE class a period or two before the literacy class improved 9/10 of a grade level equivalency in reading in just 4 months of first semester. That's significant because reading scores are hard to improve. The kids who had benefit of the PE class improved 1.4 or a half a year more. Wow. Now we did that from 2005 to 2010. You see, after the first year, then we started spreading out what we called Learning Readiness PE classes throughout the day because we had more literacy classes throughout the day. And not only that, we got involved with the math department that I'll talk about in a minute. 2010, Paul Zientarski retires. I come back and I said, let's take the study and let's stretch it out over the whole year. And it holds true. Almost 2 years improvement over the whole year. Almost 3 years improvement over the whole year if they had benefit of the PE class. So the second year, the math department chairman said, I want in on this. Being very astute and intelligent, one of the most intelligent guys I've ever run into. I said, well, do you have something that's similar to literacy? He says, yes. We have Introduction to Algebra. These are kids who are not ready to take algebra as freshmen. He said, okay, fine. He says, the first year, here's what I'm going to do. 24 kids in the class, okay? 12 special ed, 12 regular ed. 6 of each are going to be in Learning Readiness PE. 6 of them are going to have PE afterwards. We collected data, and the data looks something like this. These are the kids who didn't have benefit of the PE class before. The same teachers, same everything, okay? Here's the kids who are 93% better. So why would you not schedule kids in PE classes prior to a class they struggle with? When kids started to see this, they went to their counselors and said, I've got advanced physics next year. Make sure my PE class is a period or two before. They started to advocate for themselves. When is the last time PE took precedent in the school? Never, I think. These things can never occur, malpractice. More time needed for academics, we just talked about it. More time spent in the classroom isn't going to get it done. If you haven't prepared the brain for learning, it's not going to learn. Period. Bottom line. I love this, the discipline problem. Paul, you're a discipline problem. You can't get in my class. Go see the principal. Well, Paul's disruptive in your class. One, because you're a boring teacher. 2, I don't like the subject. So now send me to the teacher. Oh boy, I'm out of his class. Thank goodness. And so I said at the principal, so we're removing him from an educational system. No, Paul doesn't need a timeout. Paul needs a time in. So I tell classroom teachers this. Hey, tell Paul to go to the back of the room. Stand underneath the clock and see how many times you can touch your right foot on the ground in 1 minute. It's not a punishment. It's a brain break. It's a brain adjustment. it's going to get those neurotransmitters, neurotrophins, all involved. Or if they have to, if they're a frequent flyer and they have to go to the principal's office, then that principal should have a mini trampoline where the kid can come in and jump. And if that doesn't work, then send them to the PE teacher and have them run laps. Oh, a PE teacher will say, oh, we can't use PE or exercise as a punishment. It's not a punishment. You have to explain to the parents, you have to explain to the kids. This is not a punishment. This is a brain adjustment. This is getting you to so that you can function better in the class that you're not functioning well in. Period. I love this. Didn't finish their homework. I went to a private school in Chicago. Oh, big dollars. I mean, big dollars. And I say, and you know what? On top of this, you teachers get too much darn homework. I had an indignant math teacher go, oh, what do you mean? I said, well, why would you give 25 math problems to take home? I said, if a kid is making a mistake in those 25 problems, doesn't there need to be an intervention before they can keep making the same mistake? Well, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. Perfect practice makes perfect, not practice makes perfect. So send them home at 4 or 5. If they don't know the concept, now you got to reteach the concept. You've got to have an intervention in there. Simple. But, no. Because we have, at our school, this drives me crazy. We got kids that 2, 3, 4 hours of homework. That's nuts. It's busy work. Teachers, they come home and they're just miserable to their spouses because they have to grade that stuff. Number one. And then the kid comes home and they're mad, and the parents are mad because they're making the kids do the work. Everybody is stressed out. Why? Teach them in the class. Don't send them home with busy work. Anyway, how else do we use it? We change how we teach and where we teach. This is our building now. If you saw it before 2010, we had a big referendum when we rechanged our building. And we spent time working with architects. We fired 3 architectural firms because they wouldn't listen to us. We went in, and finally we got an architecture firm that said, okay, we're going to clear out all of the books in the library. We're going to set up temporary classrooms. You go in and tell us what you like about each classroom, and then we'll put that in our design. So we did. We gave them our suggestions, and then they created the classroom. So this is what it looks like. I have 2 math teachers, the math department chair, and one of the guys that was involved in the Learning Readiness PE, the Algebra Ready test, or Algebra Ready class. They wrote Brain Break books. Because you see, after 20 minutes, we have to get kids up and moving. They lose their attention. So these are Brain Break books. I don't make any money, they make the money. So I encourage you. Anyway, this is our literacy class. That looks like a typical reading class, doesn't it? Look at that. Exercise balls. Oh, look at this. They came to me and I gave them exercise bikes to put in because if you had movement to the learning process, it increases. And guess what? We can discuss things and work on our balance at the same time because now that brings in more of the play. Hello? Again. But again, we got this kind of information from the neuroscientist. You see, here's the problem. Dr. Reddy comes to visit us in 2003. We pick him up at the airport. We bring him to the hotel. And we're sitting down and we're having grapefruit juice at the bar. And one of the first things he starts talking to us about is BDNF. He says, brain-derived neurotrophic factor creates new brain cells every time you do aerobic exercise. I jumped out of my chair and said, what? Why don't you tell administrators it? They are dropping PE all over the country and we can create new brain cells? And he said, well, we thought they knew it. No. You see, administrators and neuroscientists, they don't talk together. Am I running late now?
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just checking in. No, you really are good.
Okay. Oh, I knew that. Anyway, here's the problem. All the administrators go to the same administrative conferences, and they come back with the same poison Kool-Aid. And we all have to drink the poison. Here's the next greatest invention we're going to bring to schools. It's nothing more than poison Kool-Aid because the research is only out by people who are selling this crap to them and they're buying it. And they got to come back because they got to justify their job. Any board members in here? Good. They have to the administrators have to justify their jobs to the board members. What the hell are we paying you all this money for? Well, I'm going to bring this new initiative. They don't need new initiative. They need PE. They need PE. All right. Here's what we also did. Teachers were always complaining with not enough whiteboards. You know, we started having whiteboards here. Well, what we did is we went and we just painted walls whiteboard. Cheap. And guess what happens when it starts to get too foggy and whatnot? We paint them. And at the elementary level, here's another clue. There's magnetic paint. So if you put magnetic paint, cover it with whiteboard paint, now you have magnetic whiteboards all around the room. So 2 walls for us are painted whiteboard, or 3 walls are painted whiteboard. So there's a 4th wall that's a different color. And we found that by mistake too. We teachers, we wanted to change our chairs. Let's see what it is. Okay. We've got kids in these god-awful Melmac prisons. You know what I'm talking about? They got the bar up here, and you know, lo and behold, if you're not right-handed, you know, you slip in here. Okay, so we've got all of these Melmac chairs. They're prisons. You sit in there for an hour. I dare you, you wouldn't be able to sit there. Anyway, so we changed it. We said we wanted chairs that were ergonomic. Because we have some guys that are 6'4" in our school. We have some girls that are 5 foot. And so not everybody fits in the same. We would find that girls who couldn't touch their feet to the floor were anxious because their feet weren't on the floor. Well, you need to adjust for that. Nobody ever thought about, oh, this will last for eons. Yeah, they will. So will the atomic bomb. Anyway, so these are ergonomic. They go up and down. You can rotate on them, and they're on wheels. So we teachers, and I'm including myself, we wanted carpeting. Because if we're going to get the kids rolling around on the floor, we want it to be cool. Oh, the custodian said, oh no, we got to have tile because carpeting is hard to keep clean. So okay, one classroom, practice classroom had tile, one had carpeting. Well, the new tile doesn't have any asbestos in it, so it's soft. So when we started having kids roll around, there were grooves all over the floors. Guess what? We teachers got our carpeting. We love these desks. Doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed, you get your elbows on the desk to write. And you see, because they're cut out like this, you're in closer proximity when you put them together to work teamwork. You can visualize what it looks like when you put 4 of them together. You're in closer proximity. It makes sense, okay? And they're, you know, rather than sitting in those god-awful things. So we got kids rolling around, we got, you know, it's okay for a kid to just lounge back. They need to stretch. We have some stand-up desks wherever we can. I'll go back to this slide. Every one of our classrooms has a smart board, but a smart board is only good if you're getting the kids involved with it, if they're engaged. Otherwise, it's nothing more than a darn screen like I have here. Kids have to come on and manipulate the thing, and it takes training. It takes teacher training, preparation for that. Okay? Science labs, I love this. Can't change science labs. Science labs have looked the same way when I was in school. Well, we changed it. We put our Bunsen burners and our sinks around the outside of the wall. All of these tables, as you see, are on wheels, all the chairs are on wheels. A teacher in our school does not own their classroom. They have to share it. So they never know what their class is going to be set, how their class is going to be set up when they walk in. So I've seen them put together for teamwork. I've seen them spread out when they're taking tests. I've seen them go in a rectangle where the teacher's in the middle, or in a close proximity when kids are working on dissecting frogs. And if you need a microscope or anything else, you just pull power down from the ceiling. You just have to think outside the box. Now, we were fortunate to go through a renovation to be able to do this stuff. So